I saw the headline on the train on the way into work this morning, to the studios here in downtown Washington, D.C. And the headline in the New York Times, I was reading it on my phone, was Fort Hood gunman was being treated for depression. Now, there was a shooting, I believe it was yesterday. It was Wednesday, yesterday. He killed 3 people, he wounded 16 others, and then he turned the gun on himself and killed himself. An Iraqi war veteran identified as Specialist Ivan Lopez. And it says in the article he had been treated, Specialist Lopez, end quote, David Montgomery, Manny Fernandez, and Timothy Williams writing this for the New York Times. He had been prescribed Ambien, a sleep aid, and other medications to treat anxiety and depression, which immediately made me think of Dr. Peter Breggin. In fact, I called up Sean and said, we got to talk to Dr. Breggin about this. Dr. Peter Breggin is a consulting psychiatrist, the author of numerous articles and books, including Medication Madness, The Role of Psychiatric Drugs in Cases of Violence, Suicide, and Crime. His most recent book is Psychiatric Drug Withdrawal, a guide for prescribers, therapists, patients, and families. His website is breggin.com, Breggin. Dr. Breggin, welcome back to the program.
Well, I'm really glad to be talking to you again. This is a tragic situation that is occurring to hundreds of thousands of soldiers. When you've got a man who probably has traumatic brain injury, he thought he did, TBI, and he's got post-traumatic stress disorder, and you put him on antidepressants, and the Washington Post actually says, Tom, that one of the commanders said that he was actually on antidepressants. That's in the Washington Post. Right. And you put him on antidepressants, and you've got a perfect storm for out-of-control behavior because the traumatic stress produces irritability, anger, difficulty controlling your emotions. Traumatic brain injury makes it harder for you to control your emotions. You can also get angry and irritable and feel upset and out of control. Antidepressants do exactly the same thing. For some people, and it's a significant number of people, they cause an irritability and anxiety and an anger that they can't control and a loss of control. So you're creating a perfect storm in the lives of hundreds of thousands of our soldiers, some of them on active duty and fighting. And this is just not a surprising combination for me. I actually just published a book chapter in a legal military book about this perfect storm last month, and here it comes up now.
Wow. Now, we have a clip from one of the TV ads for one of these SSRI, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor families of antidepressant drugs, the ones that seem to be most closely associated with suicide, where somebody goes out in a blaze of glory and takes a bunch of people with them. Here's what they tell the public as they promote their product.
Is a prescription medication that treats many symptoms of depression. Tell your doctor right away if your depression worsens, you have unusual changes in behavior, or thoughts of suicide. Antidepressants can increase these in children, teens, and young adults.
There you go. So, I mean, from their own mouths.
Right, and not just the children and teens and young adults. That's what showed up in little tiny 4- and 6-week trials. We have tons of evidence that these drugs increase suicide and violence in adults. Full-grown, older adults.
So, could you speak to this? We've had, we've had school shootings, we've had mall shootings, we've had a couple of military-based shootings. In almost every case, in another generation, it might have just been suicide by cop or even just plain old suicide. But aren't most of these actually suicides?
Well, they're in part suicides. They're getting even. The person's feeling they're finally getting a chance to fight back or make a statement or prove themselves. But all of these people have been through psychiatry. I mean, one of the keys here is the answer isn't more of my profession. I'm a psychiatrist. It's not more psychiatry. The Naval Yard shooter, he was on an antidepressant just a few weeks before the shooting, which is your big danger time. I think one of the reasons, Tom, we're not hearing anything about the Naval Yard shooter is because we have a direct correlation with his starting the antidepressants, flipping him out, Adam Lanza, the Connecticut shooter, they've never released his records, but I've seen a tape of the Assistant Attorney General of Connecticut saying, well, if we released his medication list, people would stop taking their drugs.
Right.
So there's a lot brewing here, and such control the drug companies have over not letting any of this be discussed in public.
Well, now that the drug companies can legally sell their products on national network television, they have become a multi-million, certainly maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions, who knows, of dollar cash cow for the same media networks that are bringing us infotainment that they call news. And the last time we talked, you said that you were trying to compile information to find out, what actual percentage of the people who were these mass shooters were on these, particularly the SSRI drugs, but on antidepressant drugs, and whether this correlation, whether these were outliers or whether there was a causative correlation here. How has that gone?
Well, it's very hard to get the information. One of the things we know with certainty is almost every single one, whether you're looking at the college shooters or the Colorado shooter in the theater, they've all been through psychiatry. Most of them are in psychiatry. That means they're on drugs because my colleagues don't do anything but drugs. So I think we can assume that in all likelihood Adam Lanza was on drugs. We know the Naval Yard shooter was on drugs. We know this man was on the drugs. And we know that a number of other very significant cases, Columbine, that one of the young men was taking an antidepressant at the time of the shooting. So they're playing a role. There's absolutely no doubt they're playing a role.
Now, my understanding is that the mechanism is that these drugs decrease affect. They decrease the ability to experience emotion. And empathy is the emotion that we experience that causes us to recognize our fellow human beings as being human just like us. And if we can drop our emotional threshold to the point where we don't feel much empathy for others, then many of these people, when they're out shooting and killing people, at an emotional level, they're just playing a video game. Is that an accurate characterization of how these drugs work?
It's a really well-described description, a part of what happens. That's active in a lot of the cases. In my practice, I see people come to me after 2 weeks on antidepressants, and they're already losing their feeling for the people around them. But these drugs also have very amphetamine-like effects, which is one reason why psychiatrists who know what they're doing or think they know what they're doing routinely put people on a sedative at the same time they put them on these drugs. Which doesn't work very well either. But these drugs have amphetamine or cocaine-like effects. They cause insomnia, they cause agitation, anxiety, irritability, anger, hostility, and every word I've just used is actually in the label, including aggressiveness and hostility, is in the official FDA-approved label for these drugs.
And suicide.
So they actually drive violent behavior while they cut off your empathy. That's a prescription for disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Peter Breggin, a practicing psychiatrist, the author of numerous articles and books, including Medication Madness, his most recent book, Psychiatric Drug Withdrawal, a guide for prescribers, therapists, patients, and families. His website, Breggin, BREGGIN.com. Dr. Breggin, great talking with you. Thank you for being on.
Good talking.
And let's just keep this topic alive. We'll be back.